Hi, this is Keith from Chicago.
Keith from Chicago. Have you ever called in before?
First time calling. I started listening back in the COVID days.
There you go. That's what I wanted to hear. Welcome to the program, Keith. What's on your mind?
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. Sorry I haven't been able to listen as much recently, but have you guys talked about the NIH kind of shutdown that's going on?
Well, it came up in the course of all the things that are going on. The NIH has basically been frozen, essentially. I don't know how else really to articulate that. This is not to be confused with the freeze on outside communication between health agencies. The NIH, the funding has basically been put on pause, right?
Yeah, and I can have a personal, this is anecdotal, but I'm a postdoc researcher in medicinal chemistry focused specifically in antibiotics, and I just got told today that I'm probably going to be let go here in the near future because we have unsure funding, and we do have a grant that covers my research, but they're anticipating that with the lack of communication, they can't guarantee my contract going further. And I got told like 2 hours ago. So, well, you guys were the first person I was like, I know I can vent my anger and frustration and kind of voice the consequences of what is going on. So yeah, they can't guarantee my contract, so they're not going to be able to renew research into antibiotics.
Well, that's woke, isn't it? All this antibiotic stuff is so woke.
Yeah, I am wokely doing my research into, Pseudomonas and hospital-acquired infections. But I know you mentioned it earlier in today's show. I now have to look, instead of doing nonprofit in the academic and, facilitating this university and is pursuing science, I now have to look into the private sector where there is a profit driven to compete for antibiotics that make money, but not that could be the next, glass box, last line antibiotic that I was working on.
So, all right, just to be clear, this is a perfect example, and you're in this boat. I imagine there's a bunch of people who work with you who are in this boat, a bunch of people who are thinking, I'm not in the boat now, but I'm next in this boat. They canceled research grant reviews. They canceled traveling. They canceled training for scientists in and outside of the institute. And they have deleted entire web pages about diversity programs, diversity-related grants from the agency site. Now, that's happening across the board. So what's happening at the NIH is unique relative to what's happening at these other agencies. And you're working on, just to be clear, on a last break-the-glass antibiotic because over the years, the excessive use, whether needed or unneeded, of antibiotics has created too many superbugs that are resistant to antibiotics. So you're trying to develop one that will, in cases like that, where you have a antibiotic resistant a bug, essentially, that you will have developed ones that are, break the glass, use this one because nothing else is going to stop this. And
that's the first couple slides in my presentations when I talk about this work.
I can't even wrap my head around, why do you think they come for you guys first? Is that the easiest thing for them to attack, these grants and whatnot? There's enough discretion there that it makes it easier for them as a wrecking crew to pause that? Why would you not want that research to continue?
I think it's twofold. I think it's one, because there is a lot of necessary failure to this type of research. There's no guarantee that what I do will work in specifically what I do, but I provide a foundation that other labs can say, well, someone else tried this, so I don't need to pursue it.
Right.
But that's not that doesn't generate profits. So what these public universities will spend a lot of resources covering a lot of ground because eventually something might work. So they look at it as this will not generate a profit because, this person didn't provide anything successful. But much like the mRNA research that went along in the background across all these universities, as soon as it was needed, it got ramped up and facilitated and, through warp speed. I know there's a lot of disagreements on that, but it was there when it was needed. And that's the type of research that is going to be cut first because it's not, upfront, immediate satisfaction of this is a product that we can market and make money off of.
Right. So in other words, and I know I'm oversimplifying here, is like we need to get a virus, an antibiotic that is not that no virus has developed an ability to a resistance to, and we have 10 possible theories as to what could do it. But each theory, if we were to pursue them, is going to take a couple of years worth of research. And so exactly. What the government is doing is they're doing those 10 and maybe they're doing 8 so that in the event, it basically says that anybody else coming into that space knows that way, that road is a dead end. That road is a dead end. That road's a dead end. That road's a dead end. Here's where the solution possibly lies. And then we should say also on top of that, those dead ends may not end up providing the antibiotic, last resort antibiotic that you're developing, but you may find other findings along the way that end up being the basis of other people's research.
You hit the nail on the head. That's how I justify academic research, and that's why it's currently a target, because there's no long-term planning. It's just this short-term, profit seeking. I know you guys talk about this all the time, but that's why it's not an emphasis specifically of this administration. And
they want it. This is the casualty. And the other thing that it does is it illustrates expressly how science is a collective endeavor. The idea of one, you may never, I don't know what your life is like. We all have this vision of like you going into a lab all by yourself, and that may be the case. But it is a collective pursuit. Having one scientist doing all the science is just not helpful to develop any new drug or any new development is is almost always, not even almost, always a function of other people who have researched in the area and have either, said this is a dead end or there's, one cul-de-sac here worth investigating, or just move on to the next, road and pursue it that way. And we're going to lose a lot of that with this.
Yes.
Appreciate the...
Thank you.
Appreciate the call.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Keith. Was it Keith? Was that his name?
Keith.
Yep.
Yeah, from Chicago. And there's, that's like a direct reaction. And then there's also the chilling effect for other kinds of research where it's just anticipating whether or not they're going to be able to have the same level of resources or functionality under this administration that they would have otherwise. It's bad.
Bad stuff. Bad stuff. Calling from a 970 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Leo from California.
Leo from California. What's on your mind?
So this is crazy. Surprised that the previous caller has almost the same job as me. I am a government employee who works on antibiotic resistance at the USDA.
At the USDA, okay. And so you're not affected necessarily by the NIH being shut down, but you're going to be affected by something else.
Yeah. Like we are affected. Like we got the letter as well, the McCarthy letter.
Let's put up an example of this letter. Hold on for 1 second. Let's put up an example of this letter. We've got a couple of those. We had one that was sent to the DHS employees. We have one that was sent to the NSA employees. We have ones here. This is the one from the NSA.
Or NASA.
Where, NASA, rather, where they're talking about shutting down DEI programs. And you've got a tattletale on anybody in there who might be still working on something that helps people from underserved communities or people with accessibility in the buildings or something like that. Anybody who's doing that stuff, but using under different words like not being an a-hole, you've got a tattletale on them. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's crazy. So the USDA sent that out. And for us, when we first got it, we laughed at it, obviously, because it's so crazy and scary and ridiculous that it's funny, right? But it reminds me, like, my grandfather was blacklisted during the kind of Red Scare because he was a Russian Orthodox church member. And it really reminds me of that period, and it's kind of the first start, right? Because the government targets that are sometimes the easiest to target are the government themselves, right? And don't forget, this is going to come to everywhere else. There are DEI programs that have been set up in every major university as well that rely on government funding and rely on government regulation to keep them going. And when the government starts turning its sights onto the universities, then we're going to see the universities start cutting these programs and the hiring and that they're doing in these areas, right? And so, like, it's scary in that sense because, like, the future is clear. Like, we've seen it before.
Yes, these are the canaries in the coal mine.
Mm-hmm.
And this is their trial run, but it's also part of, like, their agenda. This is the way it works.
And you mentioned the Red Scare, The Apprentice film that came out recently, and everyone should see it, even though I know people are probably sick of hearing about Trump, but it's a really, I think,
didn't the guy just get nominated for Oscar?
They both did, yeah, I think, and I hope Jeremy Strong wins for Roy Cohn, because Roy Cohn, known for pushing for the death penalty for the Rosenbergs, attack, his philosophy. Like, the fact that is one of Donald Trump's most important political mentors ties directly into what you're saying about this Red Scare mentality that is basically kind of being copy-pasted into the 2025 context that Trump's trying to deploy in the administrative state.
Yeah, you're completely right. And at the end of the day, the way that these mechanisms, they kind of already, they've still been there. Like, they've just kind of been under the covers, until someone decided to take them out, dust them off, and start using them again, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, something that I was thinking about with the last caller, because my situation, very similar, same research area, in fact, just different departments, was that one of our departments had come by and had said something along the lines of, like, this was under Biden. In fact, this was not even, well, it's only been Trump for a couple days at this point, somehow. But they had come by and said, oh, you know what? In order to get enough money, you have to make sure that you're reaching out to richer corporations and richer entities to fund your research, or to at least lobby Congress to fund your research, right? And so this kind of, like, money-seeking attitude has also always been there. It just might be a little more clear when people try to put it to the forefront.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's true. Much tougher sell. It's always been a tough sell, particularly, like, in this era of neoliberalism. Appreciate the call. Thanks.
Have a nice one.
You too.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.